Bobby Bear. I don't know what to even say about the man. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a man of the world. He's Ian Tyson's buddy. He's everything. Bobby Bear, it's great to be with you tonight, and you just put on a great show at the Daines Country Music Picnic, and you were something else, and everybody loved you and lined up for a long, long way for interviews. You can't beat Bobby Bear.
Well, thank you, Ivan. I'm very, very pleased that I got to meet the great Ivan Daines, and I met a lot of famous rodeo people here tonight, and I've met some of the roughest, toughest guys I ever saw in my life. So you got some great people around you, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know what you mean. And we were talking earlier about Ben Johnson and the great movie star, and I believe he's a 1947 world champion team roper, and he's a class guy. And I'd see him here every year at the national finals. We talk over the old rodeo and new rodeo, but you've rode and written and sang with all that crowd, and now the new crowd coming up. Is there a big difference, or is it the same crew?
Oh, all the difference in the world. I mean, it's a brand new world out there. And I met Ben, you're talking about Ben Johnson. I met him, the first time I met him was at Madison Square Garden. We were all doing a big blowout there. I met Ben and Iron Eyes Cody. And then, I met him at a quail hunt down in Albany, Georgia, and I had more of a chance to hang out with him there. And I got to love Ben, buddy. He was a tough customer. You can tell by looking at him. You don't want to mess with him. But we hit it off. I liked him. He liked me.
I know that when I'd watch a John Wayne movie, he was a great buddy of John Wayne's, and he worked the stock, and I know he'd have something to say about, I remember John Wayne saying in one movie, and remember to feed your horse before you feed yourself. But that was a Ben Johnson line. That's a cowboy line, you know.
Yeah, well, I remember one of these events, they called us up on stage, all the stars was there. I think it was me and John Henderson, Ben, and there was a hot young movie star there that had got into the Georgia moonshine that night, and he was drunk and starting to get sick on stage. I was standing there with, he was right between me and Ben. And he bent over, the movie star bent over, and Ben reached down and grabbed him, but the collar raised him back up. You know, he said, "Son, if you puke on my boots, I'm going to kick your ass." And you could tell he meant it, because he didn't want that hot movie star guy puking on his boots.
What about the story you told me just a bit earlier, which, you know, I'm a fan of all the great talent, and they said there was a hippie out there with long hair, and he wanted to see you, and they said, well, what are we going to do? And what was your comment?
Oh, yeah, I was doing a show back in the late 60s or early 70s. I think it was the late 60s, 69 or something. I was doing a show at Cobo Hall in Detroit, and we was doing an afternoon show and a night show. And one of the security cops came up to me and said, there's a young hippie outside here that wants to talk to you. And so he got hair down his ass. And I said, well, then I went with him and met him, and it was Gordon Lightfoot. He was playing a coffee house right down the street. And I got to talking to him, and I realized that he was the real deal, you know, not just some hippie. And I took him over to the hotel right across the street, some big hotel there. Took him over there, and he sang songs for me all afternoon till the nighttime show, and they were all all those Lightfoot songs. I mean, I heard Early Morning Rain. I said, hell, I'll cut that one, buddy. And a lot of other Lightfoot songs. And I got there's a lot of talent in Kansas. Like Ian Tyson is one of the greatest ever. You know, I had a big hit on Four Strong Winds that Ian wrote back in the 60s. And he and I have been friends for well, I know for sure for 51 years because my son is 51 years old. And Ian and I were together the week after our sons were born, and Ian's son was born the same day my son was born. And my son was a 10-month baby and weighed 10 pounds, and my wife was only 5'2". And he and I were talking. His son was a 10-month baby and born on the same day and weighed 10 pounds. So this is over 51 years ago.
You know, Bobby, I know you got to get going. You got to catch a plane tomorrow back to Nashville. What about one story about one of my heroes and a great friend of yours? You told me Billy Joe Shaver, and they don't get any better than you or him or Ian or Gordon Lightfoot in my book, or I think about anybody's book. But how about Billy Joe Shaver? He's something else.
Oh yeah, Billy Joe Shaver is one of a kind, and no doubt about that. And he's another guy you don't want to mess with. The fact is, Billy Joe Shaver and Ben Johnson, you know, there was a big age difference, but they reminded me of each other. They had the same moves and the same everything. And Billy Joe, I met him and he came into my office one day, and I was just starting up a publishing company. I was looking for a writer, and Billy Joe came in, and I talked to him for a while. It kind of spooked me, you know, because he's not your normal person. I thought, that something is crazy. And then he left, and I got to thinking about it. I heard some of his songs. I thought, well, he's really a good writer. And I sent for him again, and he came in, and I signed him up as a writer. And then he wrote right away. He wrote 05 and Dimers, Ride Me Down. Tom T. Hall was sharing one room, had a little office in one room, and Tom T's career was just beginning, and he fell in love with 05 and Dimers and recorded it. It's the only song that Tom T. ever recorded, I think, that he didn't write. And Chris Stuyvesant was hanging out in my office, and I took Billy Joe and Chris, took them to my house, and we sat up all night, you know, playing songs and stuff. And me and Billy Joe just written a song called Good Christian Soldier. And Chris heard it. I think the Vietnam War was still going on. Chris heard it. He said, I want to record that. And I said, when? He said, in about an hour and a half. Because we'd been up all night, and he had a record session that morning at 10 o'clock or something. And he recorded. All the talented songwriters in Nashville fell in love with Billy Joe singing, you know, before anybody else did, because they recognized talent. I mean, for Tom T. Hall and Chris Christopherson to record one of your songs is something. And then Billy Joe wrote Ride Me Down Easy, and I cut that and I had a big hit on that. And then John Anderson, he was like 18, 19 years old, hanging at my office. And he recorded Old Chunk of Coal, had a big hit on it. So Billy Joe started doing really good there. And then Waylon Jennings recorded a whole album of Billy Joe's songs. That whole Honky Tonk Heroes album were songs that Billy Joe wrote and I published. And with Waylon, I think I introduced Billy Joe to Waylon. Because Waylon, I got Waylon his record deal at RCA, and he came back to do his first album. He stayed at my house, and then he did a few sessions with Chet, and then I remember I was recording Streets of Baltimore at the same time that Waylon was back there, and I heard him to play on the session, so he could make enough money for plane fare back to Phoenix, where he was living. That's him hitting that lick on Streets of Baltimore. I thought that was the only lick he knew, but that was his big breakout album, that Honky Tonk Heroes album that Billy Joe wrote. Billy Joe didn't have to scrounge around for money no more. Because I think I was only paying him, I started off just paying him like $50 a week or something like that, and then I upped it to $100. But then he started making money off this stuff. So Billy Joe's a good guy. I talk to him all the time, and he's a great guy.
Please tell him hello from Ivan Daines and all of us in Canada and all around the world in country music. And Bobby, I'll add the list of people that say, please write a book. Your stories are too good. I could listen to them day and night for as long as you could tell them. So please get the book going, and we're very honored to know and be a part of Bobby Bear's show tonight.
Well, thank you, Ivan. It's just, an honor to be around. I love rodeo people. I did a movie once. I didn't really hang out with none of the stars. I always hung out with the rodeo people that were riding all the horses. It's a Western. So, I love rodeo people. They're my kind of people.
I was thinking of a story which took place a long time ago when I was riding broncs in Houston, Texas, and I went in the Gillies Club in Pasadena, which is part of Houston, and it was 9:30 in the morning, and there was nobody there, and it's a huge place. It's a huge place, Gillies Club, and there was this one man just over across the way, and he said, "Come on over here, cowboy." So I went over there, and he said, "What are you doing here at 9:30 in the morning? There's nothing going on." I said, well, I'm riding broncs tonight at the Houston Rodeo, and I have my new album out, and it's an honor to be here, and I hope the people would play it here and sell it. And he said, "Do you write your own songs?" And I said, "Yes, I do, but I have two of my music heroes with songs in this album, Willie Nelson and Billy Joe Shaver." He said, "What's your name?" I said, "Ivan Daines." He said, "Nice to meet you. I'm Billy Joe Shaver." So that's how I had the honor and the privilege of meeting Billy Joe Shaver.